Earth is an ancient witness. For 4.5 billion years, it has endured silence and eruption. Oceans have risen and fallen. Continents have drifted and collided. Stars have burned out in brilliance above its skies. And yet through all of this, Earth has kept its secrets. In the long story of this planet, humanity is only a flicker. 5,000 years of cities, a few centuries of machines, scarcely more than a heartbeat of industry. But the Earth remembers in deeper ways than monuments or books. Its memory is carved in stone, in ice, in the sediments of oceans that hold the whispers of ages. And so the haunting question emerges. What if our story is not the first? What if long before the first fire was lit by human hands, another civilization rose, reached for the stars, and fell again into dust, leaving behind almost nothing that could withstand the cruelty of time? For 1 million years can erase cities. 10 million can bury oceans. 100 million can grind down even mountains. What then would remain of a people who once called this planet their own? The paradox deepens. If such civilizations once thrived, why is there no trace? Or are there traces already here, hidden in the layered memory of Earth, mistaken for the language of nature itself? The question is not only whether humanity is unique, but whether humanity is temporary. A single chapter in an endless cycle of rise and erasure, a voice soon to fade into silence, as others perhaps already have. If you are new here, join the journey. Like, subscribe, and let's begin. The Earth is old in ways the human mind can scarcely contain. Its surface has shifted, broken, and healed over billions of years. Mountains have risen and crumbled back into the sea. Forests have burned, regrown, and vanished under ice. And in that vast silence of deep time, entire histories could unfold and vanish without leaving more than a trace of ash. A whisper in stone. In 2018, two scientists, Gavin Schmidt, director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies, and Adam Frank, astrophysicist at the University of Rochester, dared to pose a question that broke through the walls of ordinary science. They called it the Silurian Hypothesis, the name borrowed from an old story in science fiction, the Silurians of Doctor Who, reptilian beings imagined to have built a civilization in Earth's deep past. Long before humans appeared, the story was fanciful, but the question hidden within it was serious, unsettling, and strangely urgent. Could another industrial civilization have once arisen on Earth, tens of millions of years before humanity? And if so, would the Earth still remember them? This was not a claim that such civilizations existed. It was a test, a thought experiment, an unsettling probe into the limits of evidence. The central riddle was simple. If there had been others, how would we know? At first glance, the answer feels obvious. We know history. We know the fossil record. We know where humans stand in the long chain of evolution. But the deeper the scientists looked into Earth's memory, the less certain it became. For the Earth forgets fossils are rare accidents of preservation. Artifacts crumble in centuries, buildings in millennia, cities in a geological blink. Even steel, glass and concrete, left untended, surrender to the slow breath of rain and soil. The continents themselves shift and recycle their own stone through subduction and volcanism. Given millions of years, the evidence of human civilization, our towers, our machines, our entire constructed world, would shrink to nothing more than subtle chemical scars locked in rock. A civilization separated from us by tens of millions of years might be indistinguishable from nature itself. Schmidt and Frank were not archaeologists chasing myths of lost cities, nor storytellers of Atlantean fables. They were scientists studying climate change. Their work demanded that they look at the Earth as a system of cycles and records, ice cores, sediment layers, isotopic traces. They asked, in the far future, what would remain of us? Would some distant intelligence, millions of years from now, know that we existed? Would they see our hand in the carbon buried in stone, the strange distribution of metals, the plastic polymers trapped in sediment? Or would they find nothing at all, just another warming pulse, another extinction, another subtle chapter erased by time? The thought grew more unsettling the longer it was followed. If our entire story could vanish so easily, then perhaps the Earth had already held such stories before. Perhaps intelligence had risen and burned itself into brief brilliance, Long before humans walked upright, long before apes evolved, long before the mammals themselves emerged from the shadow of the dinosaurs. It was not a claim. It was a possibility, a hypothesis that stretched the imagination across epochs. A mirror held up to our arrogance, reminding us that even the Anthropocene, this geological age carved by human industry, may be as fragile and forgettable as a breath in the wind. The first whispers of this question had existed long before Schmidt and Frank gave it a name. They appeared in the margins of archaeology, in the half-serious wonderings of researchers staring at ancient monuments. Were the pyramids echoes of knowledge forgotten? Were megaliths remnants of something greater? Most archaeologists dismiss such thoughts as pseudoscience, pointing instead to the ingenuity of human cultures we still misunderstand, yet the yearning remained. The suspicion that human history might not be the first, nor the only that suspicion found fertile ground in science fiction, where imagination could roam freely from H.P. Lovecraft's subterranean civilizations to Clarke's deep-time ruins, to the Silurians of British television. The theme returned again and again, a haunting reminder of how little of deep time we actually perceive. But in science, the question sharpened only when tied to the present. The real turning point was climate change. Studying the fossil fuel age forced scientists to think in scales far beyond human memory. Carbon spikes in the atmosphere, abrupt warming events, extinctions in the fossil record, all bore resemblance to present-day human impacts. It became impossible not to ask, what if this pattern had played out before? What if the geological signatures we attribute to natural events concealed the fingerprints of intelligence? What if the very data used to predict Earth's future also hinted at forgotten pasts? And so, the Silurian Hypothesis was born not from fantasy, but from necessity. It was not meant to prove that ancient civilizations had once thrived, but to measure how science could ever know if they had it demanded a framework. What markers would an industrial civilization leave in rock, in chemistry, in atmosphere? What signs endure, and for how long? The answer, unsettlingly, was that the trail grows faint very quickly. Our cities would vanish. Our satellites would fall. Our monuments, even the greatest, would weather and collapse. And what would remain, if anything, would be subtle. Anomalous carbon levels in sedimentary layers, odd concentrations of metals that never occur naturally together, synthetic molecules like plastics. If they could survive the alchemy of deep time, a sudden extinction pattern, a geological event that looks, to the eye of future science, like a natural catastrophe imposing the Silurian Hypothesis, Schmidt and Frank opened a door to a deeper truth about Earth's history. That silence does not mean absence. That time can erase even greatness. That what we call the beginning may only be the latest turn of an ancient cycle. The whispers became louder with each geological record examined. 56 million years ago, during the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, the Earth warmed abruptly, carbon flooded the atmosphere, oceans acidified, ecosystems collapsed. The signature bore uncanny resemblance to human fossil fuel burning. It was almost certainly natural, triggered by volcanic activity, methane release, or other processes. But the echo was undeniable. It raised the haunting question. What if this had happened before? Not once, but many times? Science thrives not on certainty, but on the courage to ask. And the courage here was in confronting not the existence of others, but the fragility of ourselves. The hypothesis was unsettling, precisely because it inverted the story humans love to tell, that we are unique, inevitable, permanent. Instead, it suggested we are temporary, fragile, and perhaps not even original. The first whispers of the impossible question did not claim evidence of lost civilizations. They did not need to. The very possibility that Earth could forget so completely was enough to change the way science looked at the present. And it forced a reflection that reached beyond geology and archaeology into philosophy itself. If humanity's mark can be erased in 1,000,000 years, what then is the meaning of progress, of permanence, of memory? And if the Earth has seen others before us, what then becomes of our pride, our certainty, our place in the story of life? The whispers remain faint but persistent, like wind moving through stone. A question not yet answered, perhaps never to be answered, but powerful enough to linger in the silence between data points. In the uneasy space between imagination and science, the Silurian Hypothesis had begun its life not as proof, but as invitation. An invitation to listen more carefully to the Earth's deep memory, to hear in the silence, not emptiness, but the echoes of what may once have been. The question lingers like a shadow on the edge of science. What if we are not the first? But as soon as the thought is spoken, a wave of resistance rises. The very fabric of scientific understanding appears to pull back, unwilling to allow such a possibility. For in the fossil record, there are no bones of advanced beings before us, no fossilized hands designed for tools, no skulls shaped for thought, no signs of language carved in ancient stone. There are no metallic ruins buried in strata tens of millions of years old, no monuments predating the oldest known human ancestors. The Earth's geological record, vast and unforgiving, seems empty of such clues. This is the first shock, the first great wall that guards the sanctity of human uniqueness. Mainstream science resists, not from arrogance but from evidence, or rather, from its absence. The timescales involved are staggering. Homo sapiens have existed for only about 300,000 years. Our written history barely scratches 5,000, and yet the Earth herself stretches back 4.5 billion. Dinosaurs dominated for more than 150 million years before vanishing. Entire oceans formed and vanished, long before the first primate walked in the canopy. Against such deep time, the human epoch is a flicker, a spark that has barely touched the wick. To imagine an industrial civilization buried not beneath centuries, but tens of millions of years, is to confront how quickly time erases. A city built today may crumble in less than 1,000 years if abandoned stone monuments weather. Metals corrode, glass shatters into sand in 10,000 years. Forests and oceans reclaim even the tallest towers in 100,000. Glaciers grind the surface clean, and in 1,000,000 years, mountains rise where valleys once lay. And rivers cut new paths through stone artifacts, dissolve not just into dust, but into the very minerals of the Earth itself. Geology is a slow and relentless recycler. Continents slide and subduct, dragging surface stone into the furnace of the mantle. Volcanoes vomit new rock onto the surface. Burying what was once land in fire over tens of millions of years, whole landscapes are swallowed, and their memory is erased. Even the Himalayas, highest mountains on Earth, are but a temporary wrinkle in the crust. Time does not preserve, it consumes. This is why the fossil record is both vast and painfully incomplete. For every creature preserved in stone, countless others vanish without a trace. Fossilization requires perfect accidents, burial without decay, minerals replacing flesh, pressure sealing the imprint. It is estimated that less than 1% of all species that have ever lived are recorded in fossils. And those we find are often bones, shells, teeth, the hard fragments of life, not its ephemeral details. If whole species can vanish so completely, what chance would fragile technology have? Plastic, steel, circuitry, even concrete, in the face of deep time, they crumble like leaves. The idea that an advanced civilization might have lived and died long before humans collides violently with the human instinct for uniqueness. For centuries, humanity has placed itself at the center, first of the universe, then of the Earth, then of the tree of life, even when science stripped away those illusions, proving that Earth orbits the Sun, that humans are one branch of evolution, that the cosmos holds billions of galaxies. A subtle arrogance remained. The arrogance of novelty, the quiet belief that intelligence is rare, perhaps even singular, and that humanity is its pinnacle. But absence is not proof. The philosopher's warning applies here with sharpness. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The silence of the rocks may be the silence of erasure, not of non-existence. To look at a blank page in the geological record and conclude nothing was written is to forget the power of time's eraser. And yet the difficulty remains. If a civilization once existed tens of millions of years ago, their traces would need to survive events of unimaginable scale, continents colliding, oceans draining, glaciers advancing and retreating, meteors striking with the force of nuclear arsenals. Could anything endure such cycles? Scientists find themselves torn between the improbable and the impossible. Improbable, because the odds of detecting such a civilization after tens of millions of years are vanishingly small. impossible. Because to declare it could never have been is to mistake the silence of the present for the certainty of the past. The confrontation shakes the mind, for it forces humans to grapple with deep time itself. The human brain is not built to hold scales of millions of years. The mind can hold a century, perhaps a millennium with effort, but a million years is already abstract, a blur beyond comprehension. 50 million is an ocean too wide for imagination, and yet the Earth thinks only in such scales. The rocks beneath our feet whisper of epochs that dwarf human history. A single layer of clay may represent 1,000 years of deposition. A fossilized leaf may be older than every city ever. Built to speak of lost civilizations across millions of years is to step into a realm where the human sense of permanence collapses. This is where the voices of great thinkers re-enter, grounding the speculation in humility. Einstein, in his reflections on time, reminded us that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubborn illusion. Hawking, staring into the abyss of black holes, reminded us that even the most powerful structures of the universe decay into radiation and silence. Their lessons converge. Nothing is permanent. Not stars, not civilizations, not even the fabric of space-time itself. To assume humanity stands alone because the rocks seem silent is to mistake brevity for importance. It is to confuse the absence of evidence with the impossibility of recurrence, and it is to ignore the humbling truth of deep time, that everything, given long enough, is erased. This is why the idea seems impossible. Not because science cannot imagine it, but because time itself conspires against it. The silence of fossils, the emptiness of the record, the erosion of stone, all appear as a fortress guarding the uniqueness of humankind. But the fortress is built not of certainty, but of forgetting. To suggest another civilization might have risen before us is to turn science's own methods against it. It is to ask whether geology's memory is too short, whether fossils tell only a fragment, whether history itself is biased toward the survivors. It is to accept that our own permanence may be an illusion, and that one day the evidence of humanity will be as invisible as the evidence of any who came before. The scientific shock lies not in discovering such civilizations, but in realizing that even if they existed, the Earth may have already swallowed them whole. The shock is in realizing how thin the thread of permanence truly is. The shock is in seeing ourselves reflected in the fragility of the record, and in recognizing that what we call the beginning may simply be the latest awakening in a long-forgotten cycle. If civilizations rise and fall like waves upon the ocean of time, then their traces must be written somewhere in the body of the Earth itself. But the Earth does not keep a diary in ink and parchment. Its memory is recorded in stone, in ice, in the chemistry of ancient air trapped within layers of sediment. Each stratum of rock is a page, each fossilized shell a word, each isotopic shift a sentence in a language both elegant and unforgiving. To search for civilizations that may have existed before humanity, scientists must read this language with the precision of detectives. The clues they seek are not monumental ruins or tools carved in stone. Such artifacts are too fragile, too temporary to survive deep time. Instead, the search narrows to fingerprints so small, so subtle, that they must be detected in chemistry. Itself, the first of these fingerprints is carbon modern. Civilization has already left a mark that will endure long after its monuments crumble. Burning fossil fuels injects enormous quantities of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This alters the ratio of stable carbon isotopes, particularly carbon-12 and carbon-13. The imbalance is measurable, distinct, and impossible to confuse with natural processes. It is humanity's chemical shadow, drifting into the geological record. Future scientists, even millions of years from now, would find this anomaly locked within layers of sediment, a scar of the Anthropocene. And so researchers ask, have there been scars like this before? The answer is haunting. In the deep layers of the Earth's crust lies evidence of the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, a warming event that began some 56 million years ago. During this period, global temperatures soared by 5 to 8 degrees Celsius, oceans acidified, ecosystems collapsed, countless species vanished from the record. But most striking is the chemical signal itself. Carbon isotope ratios during the PTM show a rapid injection of carbon into the atmosphere, disturbingly similar to the signature produced today by the burning of fossil fuels. The source remains debated. volcanic activity, methane clathrate release, or even the slow thawing of permafrost could explain it. Yet the echo of similarity unsettles the imagination. For in the data, the Earth whispers. This has happened before. If the Anthropocene will one day appear as a sharp spike in the geological record, then the PET is its ancient mirror. Could it be natural coincidence? Almost certainly. But could it also be something else? The aftermath of an industrial civilization erased by time? The Silurian Hypothesis does not insist, but it asks. And in that asking, it forces science to look more closely at the scars beneath our feet beyond carbon. Other fingerprints remain possible. Heavy metals such as lead, chromium, and rare earth elements are scattered widely by industry. The burning of coal leaves behind distinct particles of fly ash, preserved as microscopic spheres that can fuse into rock plastic, a substance unknown to biology, has begun to settle into the ocean floor, where it may one day fossilize as plastiglomerate, a new hybrid stone composed of polymer and sand. Nuclear activity leaves traces even more exotic. Isotopes such as plutonium-244 or curium-247, with half-lives of millions of years, could outlast entire continents. If another civilization once split the atom, the chemical ghosts of their science might still be measurable to seek such traces. Scientists turn to the most delicate archives the Earth has preserved. Deep ocean sediment cores act as scrolls of ancient time, each layer recording what rained down upon the seas for millions of years. Chemical signatures, pollen grains, volcanic ash, even microplastics of our era, all are captured and sealed away. Ice cores, pulled from Greenland and Antarctica, preserve bubbles of air untouched for hundreds of thousands of years. Within them lies the chemical memory of atmospheres long vanished, and within those ratios of oxygen and carbon isotopes, scientists reconstruct the climates and catastrophes of prehistory. The record is detailed, but it is also fragile. Earth is not a passive archivist. It is an active destroyer of its own history. Erosion grinds mountains into dust, burying the pages of stone beneath new layers. Tectonic plates subduct entire landscapes into the mantle. Recycling their memory in fire, volcanoes overlay fresh basalt atop ancient plains. Masking what lay beneath, rivers shift their courses. Glaciers scour valleys clean. Meteors strike and rearrange the layers of time. Every act of geology is an act of forgetting. This is the paradox of deep time. The further back we look, the less we can see. The record becomes fractured, partial, and suggestive rather than whole. Where there are gaps, nature fills them with silence, and silence tempts speculation. It is here that the Silurian Hypothesis sharpens into its most unsettling point. If human civilization vanished tomorrow, within 100,000 years its cities would dissolve, its steel rust, its glass shatter, its satellites fall within 1 million years. Only geochemical traces would remain within 10 million. Those traces might be indistinguishable from natural anomalies. Now imagine 50 million years, or 100. Would anything remain? Would we even believe it if it did? The PETM is not the only candidate for such reflection. Other warming events, other extinctions, other spikes in isotopes hint at disruptions whose causes are still debated. The end Permian extinction, the most devastating of all, erased over 90% of species 252 million years ago. Most evidence points to volcanic activity in Siberia, but the sheer scale of disruption invites comparisons with industrial climate catastrophe. Could any intelligent footprint be hidden in such chaos? Science remains cautious. Correlation does not imply civilization, and anomalies must be explained by natural processes before speculation wanders too far. Yet the questions linger in the minds of researchers who stare into sediment samples under microscopes. They know the limits of preservation, they know how fragile even their own data is, and they know that the Earth has had billions of years to write and erase stories without witness. In this search for geological fingerprints, humanity confronts a truth as philosophical as it is scientific, that permanence is an illusion, that memory is fragile, and that the rocks beneath our feet are less a library than a palimpsest, rewritten, scraped, overwritten again. What we call the geological record is less a book than a whisper of chapters, interrupted and incomplete. If another civilization once lived and died upon this world, their monuments are gone, their bodies dissolved, their language erased, only the faintest chemical shadows might remain. buried deep within the strata shadows that could easily be mistaken for nature itself, and so the search continues. Not in myths of lost continents or legends of forgotten empires, but in laboratories, in ice cores, in isotope ratios read by machines more sensitive than the human eye. Each anomaly, each unexplained spike, each chemical echo forces the question to resurface. Not a declaration, not a certainty, but a haunting whisper. What if this has all happened before? The deeper scientists dig into the Earth's memory, the more unsettling the echoes become. What first appeared as simple anomalies, shifts in temperature, sudden die-offs, unexplained chemical signatures, begins to look like a pattern. And in those patterns, a haunting possibility stirs. Throughout Earth's history, warming has come suddenly, without clear cause. Beyond the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, there are others, lesser known, yet equally dramatic. The mid-Miocene climatic optimum, about 15 million years ago, where global temperatures climbed and stayed elevated for hundreds of thousands of years. The mysterious glacial terminations that end ice ages, when warming seems too abrupt to be explained by orbital cycles alone, and the sudden releases of methane, an invisible yet potent greenhouse gas, that have left scars in the carbon record. Chemical explosions that warm the planet in geologic instants. Each of these moments has a natural explanation. Orbital wobbles, volcanic outpourings, destabilized seafloor hydrates. But the similarity to modern disruptions unsettles researchers, because every warming looks like a mirror, every spike a shadow of our own industrial age. And so the question deepens. Could these be masks? Natural veils covering the fingerprints of an intelligence long erased? The paradox grows sharper with plastic. In today's oceans, rivers and soils, plastic is everywhere. Bottles ground to dust, fibers woven into sediment, microbeads drifting invisibly through the food chain. Scientists call it the plastic paradox. Most plastics are fragile in the timescale of geology. Sunlight and microbes break them down in centuries, even decades in a million years. Almost all will have vanished, leaving no bottles, no bags, no relics of polymer technology, and yet under heat and pressure, some fragments confuse with sand and shell into plastiglomerates. Stones made partly of plastic, partly of earth. Such hybrids could fossilize, leaving traces that endure for tens of millions of years. Future geologists may one day discover these stones and know them as the relics of industry. But what of the past? If another civilization once reached for plastic, might its remains already lie inside rocks we have mistaken for natural polymers, hydrocarbons hardened into ambiguous forms? The thought lingers like a ghost. Perhaps we have already seen their ruins and not recognized them. More chilling still is the fingerprint of nuclear fire human civilization. In just a century, has released isotopes into the environment that nature does not produce in abundance: plutonium-244, americium, curium, exotic elements forged only in reactors and weapons. Their half-lives stretch across millions of years, their signatures detectable long after cities have crumbled. This means that, even if our monuments fade, the ashes of our nuclear age will remain as a chemical monument. And so scientists ask, if ancient rocks contain unusual isotopes, would we recognize them as evidence of forgotten reactors? The caution here is profound, because nature itself can mimic what we create. In the heart of Gabon, West Africa, lies the proof: the Oklo natural nuclear reactor discovered in 1972. This deposit of uranium ore revealed isotope ratios unlike any ever seen in raw material. The explanation stunned the world. Nearly 2 billion years ago, groundwater infiltrated uranium-rich seams, triggering a chain reaction that ran for hundreds of thousands of years. Oklo was not built by hands, yet it produced the same fission products as a human reactor. It stands as evidence that even the strangest isotope anomalies can arise without intelligence. But it also raises the reverse possibility. If evidence of a reactor were ever found in deep time, how could we be certain it was not natural? The boundary between nature and civilization blurs, and the search for ancient intelligence becomes an exercise in humility. As the investigation deepens, the mystery darkens because each potential fingerprint, warming, plastics, isotopes, reveals a dual truth. They may prove that civilizations leave lasting scars, but they also prove how easily those scars are erased or disguised. and that erasure leads to a sobering reflection. Perhaps the silence we find in the rocks is not evidence that no one came before us, but evidence of what happens when they did. Extinction haunts the Earth's past like a refrain. The Ordovician extinction, the Devonian, the Triassic, the Great Permian die-off. Each erased most of life in sudden strokes. If intelligence had flourished in any of those ages, its disappearance would be indistinguishable from natural collapse. The silence of evidence is not the silence of absence. It is the silence of loss, and so the search grows darker. Still, because every anomaly uncovered in stone, every unexplained spike in carbon, every unusual isotope ratio carries with it not just curiosity, but warning. If civilizations did exist before, they may have destroyed themselves, just as humanity now risks doing. The Anthropocene is not just a chapter in geology. It is a mirror held up to the possibility of our own impermanence, a warning etched in carbon and plastic, in isotopes and ash, and perhaps, just perhaps, in the forgotten ruins of others. Science, cautious by nature, does not claim this as fact. It frames it as hypothesis, as speculation tethered to data. Yet even the act of asking the question shifts the tone of our reflection. Because if we are not the first, then we may not be the last. And if we leave only chemical shadows behind, then perhaps that is the fate of every intelligence that burns too brightly against the darkness of time. The silence of evidence thus becomes an echo not of certainty, but of warning that civilizations are fragile, that memory is fragile, that even the earth itself conspires to forget, and in that silence, the mystery deepens, not only of whether others came before, but of whether anyone, anywhere, can ever endure long enough to be remembered. Speculation begins where data falls silent. In the long corridors of science, when the trail of evidence dissolves into uncertainty, the mind is left to wander, guided by reason yet haunted by possibility. And in that space between certainty and imagination, theories emerge like constellations in the night sky, patterns that may not be truth, but illuminate directions where truth may hide. One of these constellations is the Silurian Hypothesis, proposed in 2018 by Gavin Schmidt of NASA and Adam Frank, an astrophysicist from the University of Rochester. It does not claim that other civilizations once lived upon the Earth. Instead, it asks a deceptively simple question. If such civilizations had existed millions of years ago, would we be able to detect them today? The answer, drawn from geology, is profoundly unsettling. Most artifacts, most structures, most cities vanish in mere thousands of years. Mountains grind them to dust. Oceans swallow them. Tectonic plates bury them in millions of years. Even our greatest monuments, the pyramids, the skyscrapers, the satellites, would be erased. What remains is only chemistry carbon anomalies, heavy metal deposits, isotopic signatures that might whisper of industry. The Silurian Hypothesis is not a claim of fact, but a framework, a lens through which to ask if absence of evidence can ever truly mean absence of civilization. Beyond it lies the vision of deep-time civilizations. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old, and Homo sapiens only a few 100,000. Our entire recorded history, a blink, a fraction of a fraction. If intelligence arose once in this expanse, why not twice or three times across different epochs? Perhaps in the lush Carboniferous forests, when oxygen was high and life grew to enormous scales. Perhaps in the warm seas of the Cretaceous, when reptilian giants ruled the land and small mammals hid in shadows, or even in the aftermath of the Permian extinction, when synapsids, the ancestors of mammals, dominated the Earth with strange, intelligent-seeming adaptations. If intelligence is not unique, then it may have flared and died again and again, separated by mass extinctions, leaving behind only faint chemical scars. Speculation deepens further with the thought of alternate intelligent civilization need not wear a human face. On Earth today, the cephalopods, octopuses, cuttlefish, squid, display remarkable cognition. They solve puzzles, open jars, use tools, change color in patterns that resemble language, but their bodies, soft and fleeting, leave little fossil trace. If they once grew into something more, their memory might have dissolved entirely into the currents of time. Other candidates emerge from paleontology. The synapsids, mammal-like reptiles of the Permian, whose skulls show adaptations for complex behavior. Or the avian line, descendants of dinosaurs, whose brains, even in small forms, suggest capacity for advanced cognition. The shape of intelligence may be unrecognizable to us. It may walk not on two legs, nor build in stone and steel, but still manipulate energy, still alter landscapes, still leave geochemical footprints in the rocks we now study. From here arises the catastrophic reset theory. A vision not of one forgotten civilization, but of many, each rising, each burning, each collapsing. The cycle repeats. Intelligence emerges, harnesses energy, alters climate, destabilizes ecosystems, and falls into silence. Each cycle leaves behind scars in the chemical record. Sudden carbon spikes, mysterious isotopes, layers of ash. But each collapse buries its own memory, so that the next intelligence walks a world cleansed of history, unaware that others once stood where it now stands. This theory is darkly anthropocentric, because it mirrors our own trajectory. It suggests that what we face today, warming, extinction, nuclear fire, may not be unprecedented. It may simply be the way intelligence always ends. Not in triumph, but in silence, yet speculation does not stop at Earth. The multiverse link extends the question outward, to the infinite modern physics through string theory and inflationary cosmology, suggests that our universe may be one of many. In some, the constants differ. In others, the laws themselves may shift. If intelligence can arise here, then it may arise everywhere, endlessly repeated across versions of Earth. Perhaps there are infinite Earths where civilizations rose before us, or where they never did, or where they still flourish long after their geological clocks have struck midnight. In this view, what we seek is not fossils, not ruins, not artifacts, but a pattern A recognition that intelligence is not a singular miracle, but a universal rhythm playing across worlds and across time. And if that rhythm exists, then what we are is not first, not last, but only part of a larger chorus. Einstein, who built thought experiments into the pillars of physics, once reflected that imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, but imagination embraces the entire world. In this context, imagination is not fantasy. It is the only tool that allows us to step beyond the narrow corridor of recorded history. Into the cathedral of deep time. Hawking, too, spoke of cosmic humility, that humanity is but a chemical scum on a small planet, orbiting a normal star, in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. And yet if that is true, then there is nothing to say intelligence could not have risen before us, and nothing to say it will not rise again after us. Intelligence in this perspective is not bound to form. It is bound only to the manipulation of energy, the alteration of matter, the ability to leave scars in the universe itself. Those scars may be in carbon, in isotope, in plastic, or in nuclear ash. Or they may be subtle, hidden in anomalies we have not yet learned to read. Each speculation is haunting the Silurian Hypothesis whispers of civilizations erased by time. Deep time. Civilizations imagine multiple dawns, each forgotten. Alternate intelligence suggests that memory may not look like us at all. Catastrophic resets warn that our fate may already be written in cycles of collapse, and the multiverse link stretches the question beyond Earth into eternity itself. Together, they build a chorus of possibilities, each one reminding us that the question is larger than proof, larger than fossils, larger than ruins. It is a question of humility, of wonder, of whether we are truly alone in the story of Earth, or merely the latest verse in a song sung across ages and universes. And in the silence of the rocks, in the shadows of anomalies, the question lingers still. What if we are not the first? And more chilling still, what if we are not the last? Science does not rest on imagination alone. Speculation may open the door, but only evidence can guide what lies beyond. And so, armed with drills, satellites, telescopes, and particle accelerators, researchers turn their gaze back upon Earth and outward into the cosmos, searching for signs that might confirm or deny the possibility of civilizations erased by time. The most patient witnesses of history are the oceans, layer upon layer. Year after year, the seabed has quietly collected the dust of continents, the skeletons of plankton, the ashes of volcanoes, and the trace elements of atmosphere and industry. To reach these memories, scientists bore deep into the crust of the seafloor, extracting cores that stretch back millions of years. Each centimeter is a page, each isotope a word, in the vast chronicle of Earth. If there were ever sudden shifts, spikes in carbon dioxide, deposits of heavy metals, anomalies in oxygen isotopes, they would be written here. And so researchers study these cores with a forensic eye, asking, do the patterns resemble natural cycles, or do they echo the unmistakable scars of technology? The search extends to what geologists call technofossils, objects not born of biology, but of intelligence: concrete, steel, fly ash, plastics. Each one is novel to Earth's geological record, each one a signal of our presence today. Fly ash from coal combustion drifts across continents, embedding itself in soils and sediments. Plastics break down into fragments smaller than grains of sand, washing into rivers and seas, embedding into layers that will one day harden into rock concrete. The stone of cities may weather and crumble, but in certain conditions it too will fossilize, a new kind of limestone threaded with steel veins. The question scientists ask is simple: how long will these traces endure? And in searching for an answer, they model scenarios of future geology, envisioning how our footprint will be read 10 million years hence. These studies are not only an attempt to understand the future of our ruins, they are also an indirect way of asking, if others came before, would their technofossils still whisper through the rocks? Yet Earth is not the only archive. Mars holds its own memory in ancient riverbeds and buried sedimentary plains. Venus, though veiled in thick cloud and searing heat, carries the scars of a runaway greenhouse effect, a fate that mirrors humanity's worst fears. And so the Silurian Hypothesis expands outward. If we ask this of Earth, we must ask it of our neighbors. Could Mars, once wet and possibly habitable, have been a cradle not only for microbial life, but for something more? Could Venus, before its surface baked, have nurtured a civilization that vanished into volcanic fury? Though evidence remains elusive, these planets remind scientists that worlds change, and in their changes lie the possibility of forgotten stories. This reflection stretches beyond our solar system to the infinite scatter of stars. With the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity now studies the atmospheres of exoplanets orbiting distant suns. By measuring the faint starlight filtered through alien skies, Webb can detect gases like oxygen, methane, carbon dioxide, even industrial pollutants. In theory, if an intelligent species had altered its atmosphere, those chemical fingerprints might be seen across light years. This turns the question back upon ourselves. If Webb existed millions of years ago and gazed at Earth, what would it have seen? Today, it would witness a spike in carbon dioxide unlike any natural cycle, an ozone layer scarred by chlorofluorocarbons, a planetary system whispering of industry. But what of earlier epochs? Could Earth itself have once radiated a signal, a brief chemical anomaly visible across the stars that has long since vanished into silence? In this way, the search for ancient civilizations on Earth becomes indistinguishable from the search for civilizations anywhere. Both are quests to understand whether intelligence leaves behind an enduring signal, or whether it always fades, forgotten by time and nature alike. The tools of physics also join this search. Particle accelerators, such as CERN's Large Hadron Collider, are often seen as machines probing the smallest scales of matter. But in their studies of isotopes, decay chains, and rare elements, they provide scientists with the ability to distinguish between natural and artificial nuclear signatures. If a geologist uncovers ancient rock laced with unusual isotopes, accelerators can test whether they resemble the byproducts of natural fission, like those at Oklo, or whether they suggest technologies lost to time. This is the forensic science of deep time, an attempt to tell whether a scar in the Earth is born of physics alone, or of intelligence altering physics for its own ends. Yet for all these tools, all these methods, the paradox sharpens rather than fades. The more science sharpens its instruments, the more silent Earth seems to become. Every anomaly gains a natural explanation: volcanic outbursts, methane hydrates, orbital cycles, natural fission. Every potential clue is absorbed back into geology's indifference. The stratigraphic record, vast and eloquent, tells a story of upheavals, extinctions, transformations, but not of civilizations, not yet. And And so, scientists remain caught in the tension between two truths. The first, that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. The second, that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. Between them lies a silence, profound and immovable. It is a silence that forces humility, reminding us that even with drills, satellites, and telescopes stretching to the edge of time, some questions remain unanswerable. Perhaps that is the deeper lesson of the Silurian Hypothesis, that the Earth may indeed hold memories of forgotten civilizations, or that it may hold none. But either way, our tools remind us of a greater fragility, that civilizations, even ours, are whispers in deep time, and whispers, no matter how loud in their moment, are easily lost in the end. Science presses forward, testing, measuring, refining. The drills continue, the cores are catalogued, the skies are searched. The silence endures, and it is in that silence that the question remains alive. What if we are not the first, and what then will remain of us when we too are gone? The Earth turns slowly, endlessly, beneath the quiet sweep of stars. From orbit it seems eternal, blue and white, a jewel of permanence adrift in the black. Yet this illusion of permanence is only that, an illusion. Beneath the crust, in layers of stone and sediment, lies a far truer story, one of memory and forgetting, of civilizations both known and perhaps unknown, erased as though they had never breathed, never dreamed, never burned their mark into the world. For every monument that stands, time raises an army of wind, water, and entropy. The pyramids crumble grain by grain. Rome's marble dissolves into dust. Even the greatest cities of the modern world, lit with steel and glass, will not withstand the patient weight of geological time. In 100,000 years, skyscrapers will collapse to iron stains. In 1,000,000, only faint geochemical scars may whisper that an industrial species once was here. If others came before, their empires too were no more permanent than the ridges carved in sand by a passing tide. Civilization is fragile not because it lacks power, but because power itself accelerates its impermanence. Technology allows growth, yet it also sharpens the tools of destruction. Stephen Hawking once warned that humanity faces existential risk from its own inventions, from nuclear war, engineered pathogens, uncontrolled artificial intelligence. In the silence of the deep past, in the vanishing of all traces, there may be a warning that intelligence is never guaranteed survival, that progress is not a staircase but a precipice. Entropy governs all. It is the quiet law that stars obey, that galaxies spiral into, that civilizations bow before. A star flares into being, fuses hydrogen to helium, burns bright for eons, and then collapses into embers or explodes into a scattering of elements. Civilizations, though briefer, mirror this same arc. They ignite in bursts of culture and discovery, rise with the blaze of industry, and fade into ash and ruin. Their artifacts erode, their languages vanish, their dreams become fossils in minds that no longer remember them. The symmetry is humbling. As stars are born and die, so too do the societies that orbit them. And so the philosophical weight deepens. What does it mean for human arrogance? This belief that progress secures permanence, if the sedimentary archive tells us otherwise. We speak of legacy, of leaving monuments, of building knowledge that will endure beyond us. Yet history reveals a harsher truth. Almost nothing endures. The Library of Alexandria burned. Entire languages disappeared with their last speakers. Empires collapsed so thoroughly that for centuries their ruins were mistaken for the work of giants or gods. The Silurian Hypothesis, raised half in jest yet pursued with scientific rigor, asks whether another industrial civilization once walked this earth millions of years before humans. The deeper reflection is this: if they did and we cannot prove it, then our own future may be just as fragile. Our achievements may dissolve into geological silence, leaving only questions. The silence of evidence becomes not absence, but prophecy. The human story has always reached for permanence, in stone tablets and digital clouds, in cave paintings and satellites drifting beyond the heliosphere. We try to outpace entropy. The Voyager probes carry golden records into interstellar darkness, inscribed with greetings and music. Yet even those may not survive. Cosmic radiation, micrometeoroids, and time itself will erode them into mute fragments. In billions of years, Even the sun will swell into a red giant, consuming Earth, obliterating all archives. So the reflection expands beyond survival, beyond science. What if fragility is not failure but condition? Stars are transient. Civilizations are transient. Memory itself is transient. The universe may not remember us, yet still we burn, still we sing, still we build. The meaning of civilization may not be its permanence, but its fleeting flare in the darkness, a light that shines, then fades, yet once illuminated the void. Still, there is a haunting question. What is more terrifying, that humanity is the first, alone, unique in all its striving, or that we are one among many, destined to vanish as all before us, repeating a cycle that the rocks themselves conceal? If we are first, then responsibility is immense, to carry intelligence into the cosmos before time extinguishes it. If we are not first, then failure may be inevitable, written into the logic of progress. The silence of Earth may already be the echo of civilizations undone. Hawking's warning lingers here with even sharper gravity. He spoke of humanity's self-destructive tendencies as not hypothetical, but probable, unless wisdom outpaced power. Nuclear signatures in the soil, rising greenhouse gases, the acceleration of extinction, all mirror the same forces that could have undone predecessors, if they ever lived. Perhaps every intelligent species confronts the same paradox. The capacity to understand its world also grants the means to unravel it. Knowledge is a flame, beautiful and dangerous, brightening the night, yet always threatening to consume the hand that holds it. And so the camera widens, pulling back into the cosmos. Earth turns, ancient and quiet, wrapped in clouds, its memory buried deep within stone. Around it, the silence of space reigns. No signal of forgotten voices reaches us. No clear trace confirms or denies what came before. Only the human species listens, straining for echoes and hearing only its own heartbeat reflected back. In the end, perhaps this is the most fragile truth, that intelligence is not guaranteed witness, that civilizations, however mighty, may leave no mark that endures beyond their time. The geological record may never reveal their presence. The stars may never archive their stories. And those who come after, if any do, may stand as we do now, gazing into silence, uncertain whether they are first or last, or only the latest in an unending sequence of forgotten flares. The Earth drifts in the cosmic dark, steady, patient, indifferent. Human monuments glimmer faintly beneath its sky, but time is vast and memory fragile. The final lingering question hovers unanswered, suspended like the blue planet itself. Will those who come after us know we were ever here? Or will the Earth once again forget, burying even this chapter of its story beneath layers of silence and stone? The story began with a question, whether the Earth itself holds memories deeper than history, traces of civilizations erased by time. We followed the silence into stone, into isotopes, into anomalies that whisper of possibility, but never quite reveal certainty. We trace plastic, carbon, uranium, methane. We trace myths of fire and flood, mirrors of extinction that may echo truths long forgotten. We asked what tools might uncover such secrets: deep ocean cores, isotope signatures, planetary telescopes aimed outward and inward. Yet with each sharpened method came the same haunting paradox. The silence remained, the theories multiplied, civilizations lost to deep time, alternate intelligences that rose and fell, cycles of fire and collapse, universes where intelligence blooms endlessly, mirrored and repeating. Each idea expanded the horizon, but none dissolved the mystery, and so the reflection turned inward to philosophy. Civilizations flare like stars, destined to burn, destined to fade. Their permanence is an illusion, their memory fragile, their legacy uncertain. What remains is not monument or empire, but the question itself, carried forward by those who still wonder. Perhaps this is the final lesson, that the Earth is not only a cradle of life, but a vault of forgetting. It buries not out of malice, but out of the inevitability of change. What we call permanence is only delay. What we call legacy is only echo. And yet, there is still beauty, for even if nothing endures, the act of existing, of questioning, of striving against silence has meaning. To be the flare in the dark, even for a moment, is to participate in the cosmos itself. The Earth turns on. The stars burn on. Humanity listens, records, wonders. Somewhere in that silence may lie others who came before. or none at all. Either way, the silence does not answer. It only invites, and the question remains, vast as the night sky. When the Earth forgets us, who will remember that we were ever here?